it didn't give me that choice. But anyways, welcome, Tim, to our conversation. Uh, this is something new we're beginning with all of our guest teachers. And the purpose is sort of twofold, to let you, share yourself, share what you're doing, your work, who you are with us. So that you can spread your message and who you are to others, and for us to get to know you and encourage more people to come to our Sunday gatherings. And so again, I just want to thank you very much. And like we just said, never done this before, so I'm going to wing it. And I do want to read just a little formal introduction about you, and then we'll begin. I mean, this can't capture it, obviously, but let me begin by saying Tim is a pioneering philosopher, internationally respected authority on world spirituality. He has been exploring spirituality since the spontaneous awakening at age 12. I'd love to know a little bit about that. His best-selling books, inspirational talks, and retreats have touched the hearts and minds of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. Tim is a winner of the MBS Writer of the Year Award, 2020 Kindred Spirit magazine, and was awarded one of the 100 most spiritually influential living people on the 2020 list in Watkins magazine. He is the author, amazingly, of 35 books, translated into 15 languages, including a top 6 Amazon surprise bestseller and Daily Telegraph Book of the Year. His latest book, Soul Story, Tim offers a revolutionary approach to awakening for the 21st century and the visionary new understanding of the nature reality of who we are and why we are here. That includes this evolutionary, the scientific theory of evolution. Tim is also the creator of this term in philosophy, univigilalism, a deeper way of life that combines our individuality with awakening to our unity with all of life. He's also the founder of the International Community of Individuals, which is abbreviated ICU, a community that we can register for and participate on Sundays with Tim. I was first introduced to Tim with one of his live online courses and was immediately attracted to his unconventional style, a sort of a spiritual teacher that's incredibly open, humble, and human, who so wants to explore this incredible mystery of life with anyone and everyone who wants to join him. I now participate in his Sunday gatherings in this beautiful ICU. You can find out much more about Tim, his online courses, retreats in philosophy, and newsletter. And one way, you can go to our website, which is oneofmeditation.net, which we have a few audio recordings of Tim explaining his philosophy and ICU by looking him up in our guest teacher tab, or you could simply Google him. But better yet, we can just listen to him now. So thank you, Tim, for taking time out of your very busy schedule. Welcome, and so appreciative.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to be here, Rick. Because you said a lot of lovely things and a lot of fancy things in the introduction, the sort of things that people put on the back of my books, and they're all basically true. But the truest thing you said was that I really, it feels like what we're in is so profoundly mysterious. The opportunity to explore it with other people who also find it profoundly mysterious and want to understand it, but also experience it in the deepest way. It never ceases to be a delight. Just not. So the idea of like, oh, I'm going to speak with Rick about the mysteries of existence for an hour. That's not like an interruption to my busy schedule. That's like, oh, that'll be nice. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and I feel that enthusiasm, and it's almost like there's nothing better to do in life. and just share with this light who we are, this discovery of who we are and why we are here. And so with that too, I think I want to have you use this hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, to what you want to share about yourself, and to others, what you want to let other people know about you and what you're offering. And I also have just a personal kind of, I think I shared this with you, a question too, how, this personal awakening that you had when you were 12. And I find it so incredible. You're especially you come across as this just amazing, normal human being, but you have dedicated your life to something that's very unusual people do. I mean,
Yeah.
and there's, I know a few spiritual teachers and they've done this, and what I think what was it that drove you to do this? And I've sort of too, the doubts you maybe had, because you're going in a path that's very unique and not maybe so secure. You don't know, I might be able to afford a house, and live, this way. And what were your fears? And what, I just sort of that kind of, I'm just curious about you as a human being too.
It's a really great question, I think, which in that way, I don't think I've ever been asked it before, but I really like it as a question. It makes me think about my own journey. And so the thing when I was little was a spontaneous thing that happened to me sitting on a hill with my dog overlooking this tiny little town I live in. And the build up to it, I think, which was relevant and looking back, was that I already had this incredible sense of the significance of life, that something was happening and no one was talking about it. Everyone was walking around as if they knew what life is, and nobody did. And that was true of my parents, my teachers, and everything, and I can remember before the awakening experience. So I must have then, I guess, been 9 or 10 or something like that, but walking again with the dog, actually, with my dad, and talking, about this. And him, and I just remember it so vividly. I can hear his voice still. And he said to me, "Well, Timothy, better men than you or I have asked these questions and found no answers." And that was the end of the conversation. But what I remember is thinking to myself, oh, I will, because why could there be such a big question if there wasn't such a big answer? That's ridiculous. And so that was already there in me, this kind of like, what the hell is this that's happening to me? What does it matter? And I think I always had a sense that it did. And what is death? And all the classic kind of questions were with me. And then one day, and I can't remember there being any stimulus for it particularly at all, apart from, I think I went into that mystery so deeply that suddenly there was what I would now call a deep awake shift. And I was in another state whereby I need to be careful, because I've described it, sometimes I think what I've done in the past is sometimes I describe it with the language I have now, but I didn't have that language then. So the way that I had the language then, and I did write about it afterwards. So I've got some stuff, but the experience that I remember then was love. Like the whole universe is pulsating with love. I am totally loved, and the vehicle I could understand it through was this is God, because I've been told that God is love. It's a phrase my dad used to say a lot. God bless him, made a big impact on me, I'm sure. And my mum was an embodiment of love, and so it was kind of made sense to me. And this, but also, looking back, there was other important things too. There was the sensory enlivenment, color, a sense of utter wonder, beauty. And although I didn't think about it in this way, I think it would be true to say there was this kind of communion or oneness underneath that. But the thing I remember the most is just being relief, like coming home, that classic thing that the mystics always say, that feeling of this is what I want to feel. And this is, my questions are resolved into the experience in some way. That was the big impact after it. And then literally my life changed. How I thought about things started opening up. I mean, I was also just coming into my teenage years, so that's not an accident, I'm sure. I was open to whole new things that were coming across. The counterculture was starting to arrive. It arrived very slowly where I lived because I was in the middle of nowhere, really, and sort of began to listen out for that, and started to look for people who could help me understand it. I think the first thing I did, well, I had a background in going to church, so that was there. But the first thing I remember was turning to Mohandas Gandhi and looking at his ideas. And that's probably because my dad had been in India as a soldier and had talked about Gandhi a bit. And so I had an idea who he was. I didn't know any spiritual teachers or anything like that. So he was somebody I knew. And so I kind of latched onto him. There was no internet, so I had to read books, and that set me off. And then, more and more, just finding people. Someone said he's a Buddhist, at college, an older kid. He's a Buddhist. What's that mean? What's Buddhism? And you should read Alan Watts. Who's Alan Watts? And then all the same thing we all went through. It just was, mine was quite young, and expanding into what happened to me, and how can I experience it again. And what I found was I could experience it again, but no particular pattern arrived. It would just occur. And when it occurred, everything was perfect. And then the other thing which was really noticeable about, because my nature is to create, that's very big in me. I created from it straight away, writing and wrote a play about it, actually, just all sorts of things. And then eventually music as a musician. But also what would start happening is that when I'd have it happen again, people around me would have it happen for the first time. So right from the start, even in my teenage years, I could see it was a collective thing, was that I would talk to people about it, or it would just happen. But sometimes it would be, as we talked about it, it'd be like, I could look, we're making the change. Can you feel it now? And then bang, it would happen. And or later. I mean, I always remember a girlfriend at university who me talking about this experience that could happen, and her not knowing what the hell I was talking about. And then 3 o'clock in the morning or something crazy, this bang, bang, bang on my bedsit door. And this girl going, it happened. And she comes in and it happened. And so that was so my motivation. I mean, I didn't remotely set out to become a spiritual teacher or anything like that. I mean, my motivation was, I want to experience this more. How do I do that? Should I become a monk? What should I do? Do I have to meditate? Well, all of that. And how can I share it? Because it feels like it's to do with all of us. That's what was going on. I remember in my about 24, probably, going to see Ram Dass for the first time. And he became a figure for a while for me, because it was the 80s and he was a big figure in the 80s. And he came across from America, and I went to see him, and he did a fantastic performance. I mean, he was just funny. And that's where I think right from the start, I mean, there'd been other teachers before that, many actually, but what Ram Dass gave me, which was that sense of, he was willing to be human and vulnerable and real. And because I kind of felt like you had to it looked like you had to pretend to be somebody you weren't. You had to have sit like this and talk slowly and be all, there was an aesthetic to being spiritual. It wasn't actually about an inner thing. It was an outer performance. And Ram Dass had some of that, but he also undercut it all the time with his humanity. And I was drawn to that. But the reason that I thought you might be interested, because you see my hopes and fears, was that there was something about him as a man. So I was 24, he would have been my age now, no, younger than me, he'd been in his 50s. And when I came out, he'd had us all laughing. I was as high as a kite. It was just like beautiful. And I had such a strong sense as I was watching him we're both Aries men as well. There's something similar about that. I don't know what, but there is. And I would look at him and I thought, that's what I have to do. I have to do that. And I felt absolutely terrible about it, Rick.
Oops.
I mean,
I got this little alarm going off here to show you how. I'm sorry.
it's all right, we're live.
You're alive, we're human.
So I had this I felt terrible about it because I had come into it by now through a lot of Eastern ideas in particular. I realized that my ego was the problem, which I no longer think, but I did then. And so what I saw was it was like, oh my God, who am I to, what this terrible thought that I could elevate myself to these lofty heights and how terrible that is. And really went, oh, that's terrible. I must get rid of that feeling. And try to get rid of that feeling. And then whenever it was 20 years, 30 years later, sitting with Ram Dass actually in Maui, I thought, isn't it funny? Because in a much smaller way than Ram Dass, but that's exactly what I ended up doing. And it was so natural and so unpretentious and wasn't an ego inflation at all. It was the complete opposite of it. So I think that's how it works. I think it's just human beings doing following their passion. That's how it is for me. Just like I became good at something because I paid it so much attention. Mm-hmm. And then I think I can probably help people who haven't paid it so much attention because they've been paying attention to something else. It just feels very, very natural. And the hopes and fears with all of that. Well, there's one. It was a fear that I would be inflated. That was why I shared it with you. Apart from that, there would be in the journey. I've had huge periods of dark nights and all the rest of it, and feelings of, well, especially at the beginning. I think I would be very kind of a bit bipolar, really. Maybe actually bipolar, but I didn't think of it like that. It was more like there'd be times when it all made sense and it'd be utterly beautiful. And then when that went, there'd be a feeling of, oh God, maybe it doesn't. And maybe this is a meaningless thing and it'll all fall to bits. So I'd move between those two. That doesn't happen anymore. I'm glad to say. So that so all the fears, and then and now I feel like my fears are useful. I fear scary things because life is scary as hell, and I have no illusions that it could do anything with me, and that it could it could go over. I've had an easy time, I think, generally, but I see lots of people who have beautiful, admirable, good people who haven't had an easy time, and I know it could do anything, and I just hope that I can meet the challenges as they arise, and I hope I've got the people around me to support me meeting those challenges.
That is incredibly human, just what you just said. Yeah, that life is scary, because part of the spiritual kind of thing is to transcend that fear, and believing that it won't be there. I think sometimes, and
I'm writing a little thing at the moment, and I think I might do a chapter called BS, standing for bad spirituality, because the biggest thing that's happened to me now, I'm in my early 60s, is so much spirituality for me is, I don't want to be, it just feels lost, really, and things like that. It's like, if you don't find life scary, you're not enlightened. You're just not paying attention, because bad things happen to really good people all the time, and that is scary. If you've got kids, how could you not be scared for them? It's like fear is a good thing. It's just you don't want it to dominate you. And what I see in spirituality is this kind of, I think what's happened is, it's a bit like, can I try this analogy? I'll try this out. It's like, if you look at science, you had huge breakthroughs like Newton, just monumental breakthroughs. But then a few hundred years later, you've got Einstein, and it all moves on. Now, Newton is still a huge player, and it's still useful, but Einstein and quantum physics, and it's like, you know, you want to be with that, don't you? Not, you don't want to be, you know, Newton is like, okay, you're in primary school, but now let's move on. Well, what's this? In spirituality, we're all stuck with Newton. It's like we're repeating insights that are come from the Axle Age 2,500 years ago, as if somehow they were absolute and we arrived, and we didn't. And during that phase, spirituality became very transcendental. And I think the reason it became transcendental was that people were experiencing this deep awakening to oneness, probably for the first time in the evolution of the human species. You know, if we've evolved, there was a time when it happened for the first time. There was somebody who experienced it or something like it for the first time, and it's grown and grown and grown. And I think when anything arrives for the first time, it's hard to repeat, because I think the repetition of things creates what I call pastivity, the way that the past makes it easier to do things again in the future, like habits. So the very first people who are doing this, I think it's a very profound thing, as anyone who's experienced it knows, it's hard to achieve. So that people are rejecting the world. They're going off into caves. They're focusing on nothing but this. All understandable. And part of the experience that comes from it is that you're waking up to oneness, and then, as happened to me, you're back here. Oh, and then it's meaningless. And then you wake up and it's like, yeah, and then you're back here. And you could easily draw the conclusion, okay, so what's the problem? The problem is being back here. The problem is Tim. So what brings me back here? Well, everything about Tim's humanity brings me back here. Thinking stops me being peaceful. Emotion stops me being equanimous. Attachments stop me being equanimous, and you know, all these things stop me transcending. Well, if that's your aim, then basically what you're saying is your humanity is the problem. So not surprisingly, spirituality became about rejection of our humanity. Now, but I think we've evolved beyond that now, and I don't think that's true. It's in the same way that we've evolved beyond Newton and into quantum physics, and it's like we've gone further. And actually, we don't need to, not only do we not need to reject our humanity, it's actually a massive mistake to reject our humanity, because our humanity is not the impediment, it's the foundation from which we wake up to oneness. Our individuation, our individuality is not some sort of cosmic mistake. It's the foundation from which we wake up to when you said we wake up to being a unividual, an individual conscious of unity, not just the unity, but the individual conscious of unity. So what excites me now is I just want to, you know, I've done it. And for those who are interested, I just leave behind all that ridiculous old spirituality. It's just ridiculous. It was great at the time, but not now. And what's happening is this kind of repetition. People learn the tradition, or they learn the basic ideas and they repeat them and repeat them. But what we need to do is think it through and dare to see, it's like the experiences are real. How do we interpret them? And then if we change the interpretation, do the experiences deepen? And so that's what I've been doing, Rick. That's what I spend my time doing every day. It's like, how can I understand this better?
Yeah, and one of the things that you're speaking to now is part of your BS with bad spirituality, and you said it, and it's a little controversial because you talked about the ego. It's not, you know, a lot of spirituality is the ego. You got to kill it. You know, this is, and you're bringing out no. And I wonder if you could sort of share a little bit more about this, because this is part of this. I think you even said the word one time, the phrase that the ego, in a way, is the hero of the story, or this individuality. Which, yeah, if you could share a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, sure. So look, egotism is an unpleasant thing, meaning somebody who just thinks about themselves and thinks it's me, and you know, nobody likes that. And it's a, you know, I would encourage us all to move beyond that. But if we by the ego we mean the thing that makes Rick and Tim, then that's the hero of the journey of life. And you get there's all sorts of different understandings, but the common thing is this rejection of humanity, is that there is something in you this is the one there's something in Rick which is stopping him awakening. Worse, it will do everything in its power to stop Rick awakening, because the ego knows that if Rick awakens, the ego will die. A horrible idea. I mean, very common. that in you there's this civil war between something which is going, no, 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 me. And I really don't think it's true. I think if you think like that, it can start to happen. But if you turn it around and go, no, it's like Tim, my ego, my individuality, my personality is a evolving current in this 14 billion year process. Because it's evolving, it's a mixed bag. There's things about Tim which I think are fairly admirable, and there's plenty of things about Tim which are not. And he has to wrestle with his past and his habits and his all the rest of it, like everybody, and that's what we are. But there is also a constant evolution, movement forward. And part of that movement forward, which happened for me for the first time when I was young, but it can happen anytime, is I recognize something bigger than Tim. And then that became part of Tim's evolution was, how can I nurture this experience that I'm actually the whole universe arising as Tim? How can I nurture that and see that I'm coming into something bigger than me? And that's when that the unividual arrives. But it arrives through Tim. And it's kind of obvious. It's like nothing I've ever experienced has happened except through Tim. And the same with Rick. And even if I think of the most, if I think, like 2 years ago, I had a particular experience in which was very, very striking because it hadn't happened before, which was one of complete immersion in what you might call light. Just gone, and no Tim, no thoughts, nothing. And exquisite, unbelievably exquisite. And coming back to Tim from that experience. And because I can now understand, because I can see that if you, like the traditional understanding of that kind of samadhi thing is, for a moment you saw the truth, there was no Tim. And then you got trapped back into Tim. That's the, keep going. And if you do it enough, Tim will one day disappear. Like Tim's just an irrelevant thing that's in the way. But my understanding, which arose from it and really felt endorsed by the experience, actually, was no. But my consciousness is where I place attention. I'm conscious of whatever I pay attention to. Like I'm paying attention to you right now. I'm not conscious of my wife who's in the house over there, but now I thought of her, I am. I wasn't conscious of my big toe. But now I am because I thought of it. It's like that. And the wherever you place your consciousness comes into HD. It becomes really vivid. And where it isn't, just disappears. Now it's like I have a little fan here because it's hot in here. My air conditioning is not quite working. So I've got an old fashioned fan. It's making a bit of noise. I wasn't thinking about it, but now I'm listening to the sound. If I went right into the sound, like in meditation, that sound would fill me. And that's what meditation does. When you breath or you just focus, and suddenly everything else disappears. And there's just breath or sound and that's what you're learning with meditation. It's like, when you focus your attention, everything else goes into unconsciousness. Now, it's still taking it in. It's just you're not consciously taking it in. So, if someone made a big noise outside my room or shouted help, 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 I'd hear it and my attention would go there. So, okay, so if you understand that, then when you have an experience like I had a couple of years ago, on Remembrance Day in this country, funnily enough, 11/11, which is our Remembrance Day. So it's funny. And then I put my attention so completely in that place, there was nothing else. But Tim was still there. Tim was actually lying down on a mattress. Tim was there. It's just my attention was totally on the oneness of being, let's call it. So that, and when that experience came to an end, my attention went back to Tim, who had been there the whole time. And whilst in the experience, there was nothing, no separateness, there was nothing except being. And one would call it timeless because there was nothing to change. Afterwards, I could go, I reckon that lasted about 10 or 20 minutes, that timeless experience. because actually there was time. It's just my attention wasn't on time. And when you get that, suddenly you can see if, oh, so Tim, in time, a process, something evolving, something which is coming into being, had by good fortune or grace or whatever it was, had this experience by focusing on this thing, and then came back and carried on being Tim. And now that is part of Tim. And that enables Tim to go forward with a greater sense of, I want to serve that, and all the things that come from that. And so Tim is not then in the way or an impediment. And it wasn't like, oh, bad luck, you came back to Tim, which is what I would have thought when I was 20. Now it's like, no. Good luck that Tim had that experience, and good luck for Tim that he can now carry that within him and try his best to share these things with anyone else who's interested.
Yeah, just feeling into that with you now a little bit, and in the sense of a little different interpretation. That seems, the words come from Ken Wilber, that includes and transcends. So what Rick or Tim is it actually expanding? It's not negating anything. It sort of seems like.
Yes, exactly that. Expanding, not negating. Exactly that. And the negation thing is an idea which arose in mysticism. This is why I compare it to Newton. It was like, I'm sure, well, it was a breakthrough when I learned it when I was younger. It was like amazing. But we've had this kind of idea. The whole evolutionary understanding is new. There's been precursors right the way back, but the level we've got now is new, and it changes everything. Because I don't think it's credible now to go, the ancient rishis, they knew, and then we've all got lost. It's like, did they? Let's have a look at it. They knew something, and they were giants of their time. There's no doubt about that. But our job is not to just go back to the giants of our job is to try and be giants of our time, is to actually move that process on to the next thing that's emerging, And so we don't need to, like Aristotle was a great philosopher, but he thought the brain was a cooling system for the blood. It's like, now, do you want to go to an ancient brain surgeon or a modern brain surgeon? It's like, I'd go for the modern brain surgeon. So why aren't we like that with spirituality? We should be like that. And if we did, we would cut through a lot of the nonsense. We'd cut through the fake authority, the repetition just of tradition. It's like, that's great when you're in danger of losing knowledge, but we're not in danger of losing knowledge anymore. We've got books. We don't need to repeat it to keep it alive. We can write it down and then rewrite it and redo it and keep. So everything's changed, and we don't need this whole kind of game of elevating certain people who've had experiences as if they're kind of, I don't know, superhuman or something. It's like, I don't think it helps. I think it's actually a really bad idea. I think there's some pernicious ideas we've inherited from the East. Most of us in our culture, I certainly did, have been very good at criticizing the Western tradition and where it needs to move on. I'm not absolutely sure if I wanted to symbolize awakening, I would choose to have a man being tortured to death on a cross anymore. I understand why it's a powerful symbol. I've written whole books on it, but not now. It's like, we're done with that. What I did was imported then Indian religion. And there you get you get three ideas which work together. One is there's a thing called absolute enlightenment, which you either have or you don't have. And it's the end of the beans, you're done. And then you're off the wheel, because being here is a shithole. Get off if you can. And the way you get enlightened is to get rid of your ego, which is to dissolve your humanity, your attachments, your thoughts, your emotions, don't have kids, just get away. And the third thing is, the only way you can do that is to have some figure who's absolute authority outside yourself, who's the guru, who's already done it, because you'll never do it yourself, because the thing you need to dissolve is in you, trying to stop you. And those three ideas, I think, are all three wrong. And I think they're very dangerous ideas, and they create cults, and we need to form of spirituality which doesn't involve them.
I'm just always just blown away. I appreciate what you're saying. I had a thought in there, and it sort of mellowed away.
What you at me here, Rick? I'm saying this very strongly. I don't know why.
No, I love it, and it's so interesting. Even this what's coming up, this whole your philosophy, sort of this emergent spirituality, and again, it's not. One time this stuff was the emergent.
Exactly.
It always is in the present. Something else is emerging. Something else is emerging, and I feel what you're saying is being open and available to what's emerging now, because it's again the word including and transcending, because it's like this word passivity that you use. It's including everything. Without that, how the hell could anything emerge? And it's being open and alive to this emergence, always this emerging reality. And so negation has a different meaning in a way. It's not fixed. It's not solid. It's not holding on to something. It's recognizing the truth of reality that you could just right now, you just look at it, everything is always emerging. There's nothing that's not emerging. So if what you're saying is, well, why aren't we including this in our spirituality, our philosophy, our everything? So
I think so. And I think spirituality's job is to help us experience the most emergent levels of the psyche or the soul. That's what it should be doing, and that's what it is doing. I mean, even with the ideas that I find need to be left behind, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of very good people doing lovely things, and people having powerful experiences and opening up to the oneness and feeling the love, and lots of good things happen. Like lots of good things happen. I'm not saying they're the same, but in fundamentalist churches, good things happen. People have ecstatic experiences of God. That's why they're there.
Yeah.
And so then it's a matter of, okay, the experiences are just there. The universe is very generous, so they're just there, and we can have them. And then it's a matter of how do we interpret them, and how do we live from them. And the place I've ended up is very much to say the problem with science, which I now love and didn't when I was growing up, thought it was just like couldn't explain anything because I was interested in meaning, and it didn't have any of that. But it's very, very powerful. But the philosophy that's associated with it reduces everything to its lowest common denominator. It's reductionist, deterministic, and ends up going, hey, Rick, you're a clever monkey on a planet. You're here for a few decades. Don't expect to do too much because you'll only be gone, and that's the end. And there's no meaning. It's all just random. That's the fundamental philosophy. So that's like really bleak and wrong, in my opinion. And then you've got the transcendental spirituality, which is the one I got pulled into, the mystical trick, not the religious stuff, but the mystical stuff, which kind of has a same thing. The science is going, you think you're making choices, but really it's just your brain doing biological stuff, and that's really chemicals, and chemicals is really atoms, and it's all. It takes your humanity and just dissolves it. And then the other side does the same thing. It goes, your humanity isn't anything. It's an illusion of separateness. You're not really you. Can't you see that? Really, and again, it kind of, and what I feel like our humanity is beautiful. They're really, really amazing. And I think most of us have an intuitive sense, which these two things kind of have a macho kind of thing, like, oh, you're still into that, are you? It's like, but it's so tender and raw and poignant. And it's certainly, when I had kids, it's like, wow, no one's going to tell me this doesn't matter. This matters. And so therefore it's been about what is the human adventure really then? And my feeling is that our individual lives are of massive significance, because the universe has been on a 14 billion year journey to reach us. And maybe other things too, but us in this case. And we are these biological beings, but we also exist on this level of psyche. Psyche just means soul. We exist as souls. We're right now, you and I are communicating in a non-material realm full of ideas, and we've loved it for 40 minutes. And given that we've arisen from the universe, and the universe has been this process, which has become more and more emergent, as Brian Swim says, it's got us from hydrogen 14 billion years ago to you and I having this conversation about the universe. That's just blows your mind, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So hang on, we are the universe having a conversation about the universe, trying to go, is it significant that I've evolved into human beings, or is that some sort of mistake? That's what's happening right now.
That's a powerful question.
And my feeling is, look, it's not some sort of mistake.
Yeah.
It's actually a really beautiful thing, and we just need to keep going. And there egotism in us and negativity, and there's a side to art. Yeah, lots of the past. You go back in history, it's not a place you want to live. Human beings are different, not all, but most. But as we grow up and we move forward, there's been this movement towards compassion, tolerance, inclusivity, violence going down, poverty going down, child mortality disappearing, huge things. And that's all moving, I think, towards the arriving of what I call the unividual. That actually there's a growing sense of oneness, one humanity, oneness with nature, and then just underneath, bubbling away, oneness with the whole universe, which is what I've been exploring. That's what the mystics have been exploring, and that's what I've given my life to. And I think we just need to keep going. Just nurture that in ourselves and each other. And if that's the case, then spirituality, far from I wear this and I call me this and your holiness, spirituality needs to be the most authentic thing on the planet. The people we need to find to do that are the people who are willing to be the most vulnerable, the most honest, the most raw, the most right there, and to push and not just repeat, and to doubt themselves, and to evolve, and to model that, and to share it with others. And then we need to get together in groups of people who are doing that. And nurture, and also, like you're doing, the meditation is a great way of developing that sense of oneness, of being a individual. So, find techniques, the connecting thing I do, and all of that,
Oh, that's a good segue into this question here, because a lot of people have asked, what, meditation, how do I take that into the world? What am I taking into the world? And you have been answering it, but is there another way, another angle that you can answer that? Because I heard a lot.
There's lots of answers to that, but the one that comes to mind for me is, I'm a musician, or used to be a professional musician. You can see my little keyboard there. I can still do a little bit sometimes. When you're a musician, if you want to be able to get up and jam, you better do a lot of practice, so that when you get up and jam, you can just do it. And there's nothing better. But it involves being able to go, I want to be able to do that. And then when you go, oh, I'll do that, then it just happens. And I think it's like that with meditation. It's like spiritual practices are practice. That's what they are. So if you can practice putting your attention on the most emergent thing you can find, then when you're out in the world, it's easier to put your attention on the most emergent thing you can find, or to find a certain system, or if you practice like you have with me of gazing with somebody and just seeing the universe looking back at you in a rarefied atmosphere where it's very pleasant, maybe there's music going, and it's like, oh, this is nice. Then when you're at the corner shop, there's a chance that you can go, oh, universe looking back at me. And you just see deeper in that moment. And the person who's serving you often feels it. They don't know what they feel necessarily. Well, they feel seen. That's what they feel. They feel like, oh, that person just saw me. And most of the people just come in, they don't see me. But that person saw me.
I never heard it expressed that way, Tim. And I'm finding that so incredibly beautiful. To putting your attention on the most emergent thing is a practice of continually, willingly, openly, freely undefensively, unguardedly putting your attention on the most emergent thing, walking down the street or being in the coffee shop or whatever. That's such a beautiful way to explain that. And it feels so true in my own experience. Yeah, that kind of, you know, I love that word, but it was like that space of freedom. And then when I don't play, but it was sort of I had an opportunity one time to go into, I was in Philadelphia teaching meditation in the Philadelphia schools. And we would meet a bunch of these musicians, and I was like the only person that was a musician there. And this guy in his house had all these instruments all around the room. And his goal, he wanted everybody to take an instrument or one that you brought and start sort of just playing together and listening, and then create something. And it was exactly what you said. When you put your attention on that space of music, even though I'm not a musician, and just I would pick up something very easy like the bongos or something simple, you could feel this kind of, I don't know what it is, an energy, letting go, of freedom. That's the most amazing thing in the world, of a presence living me. And it didn't matter if it was music or sharing with somebody or whatever. That openness to this mysterious emergence, it feels like the most important, biggest, most joyful, most loving. It was a loving playing of music, and so that is such a beautiful thing to tie in with our meditation. It's just you are practicing this. You have used the word diffuse too. You talked about kind of a focused attention here, but it also, you speak of it, in my experience too, it feels like a very diffuse kind of attention on nothing, but the nothing isn't empty in a way, it seems like. I don't know if you have any
it's
thoughts
not
on
empty.
all that.
It's full of everything. And that's where when you get that focused attention, you just go, oh, that really makes things come alive. But then if you take that intensity, let's say, of attention and then let it be diffuse, then you've got, suddenly you're aware of that everything is, there's something in particular, but then everything is also one. It's also all integrated into a whole. And you open up that other experience of the ground of being. Everything is being, the isness of everything. And if you then do that with your eyes closed and you leave sensation behind, and then you leave thought behind, you just go into that in itself. And that can be a very deep and beautiful experience. And it's a great thing to do. It's lovely.
Yeah. And it's and like you're saying, it's that kind of relationship. Then when we get off the cushion, it's kind of, it feels to me, let's see if you agree, but it's a relationship to life in a way.
Yes.
A very
yes.
open.
So one of the key, there's two things actually that's come up from what you just said. One of the key phrases for me in this phase of my evolution and understanding has been to leave behind the idea of it's all one, and instead play with the idea of it's all the one in relationship with itself. Because it's not non-dual, is it? It's dual and it's non-dual. So you can go into that non-dual space for sure, but then you do it through the dual. And everything is relational. Everything we have is an experience of relationality. And even right down into physics now, they're going, oh, look, everything's relationship. And everything I experience is the relationship between Tim and the universe. That's what I am. I'm not Tim. It couldn't possibly, I've never, ever been just Tim, ever. I've always been Tim in relationship with the universe, because that's what I am. Or I am the universe as Tim in relationship to itself, you could say. So that, and then what is that relationship? And the most emergent form of that relationship seems to be this big love, this incredible connective communion where you see the oneness. And so it's like the love you have for some person who you really see the oneness with, and you have that beautiful experience that we all long for of, I just dissolved into that person. It was just great, except it's for everything. And suddenly you've dissolved into everything with that love. And And when you started off with this whole conversation, I just wanted to say to get back there, because you started by going, what made you do this? You know, it's like, that is the love all the way through. That's been the real thing, the real motor behind it. And still now, although mostly I'm focused on philosophy in this phase. My previous phase was more around the experience of awakening, still is, but it really is pushing on how we understand it in the moment. Even then, it's the love, because that's the very first thing that I experienced when I was 12. Oh, wow, there's this love. And in this love, it all feels worthwhile. And it's okay. Even when it's not okay, it's okay. And that's the motivation. Just want to see more and more of that. I want to unleash it into the world in all of us.
Incredibly beautiful. And the sense too is in that love, as that love, it's almost you feel what you are and why you're here. You even said before, the answers are almost like they're obvious, because it's you're embodying it in a way, a mysterious way. And it's like it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah. So is there anything else in this last few minutes here that you would want to share that we haven't shared, that, you know, the opportunity for whoever's going to watch this? You know,
there's a million things, but I feel like we've in that lovely way that spontaneously happens. I feel like our conversation has come round in a great big circle, and we can arrive at the beginning and know the place for the first time, as T.S. Eliot said. It's like, yeah, you started by asking me what it was about, and I finally got to the realization, oh, I think it was about this actually, Rick. Underneath it all, it's that, you know, I'm a love junkie. It's that when well, it's been a transition. There was a lovely moment at one of my retreats years ago now, where I said, oh, I think, you know, I call myself a philosopher, but really I'm a love junkie. And someone at the back shouted out, you're not a junkie, you're a dealer. so maybe that's my real role in the world.
I feel like we've got our fix. You just you just invited us into this love, and we feel it. It's a wondrous, mysterious, joyful, hugely meaningful space where what else would we want to do except be love junkies and see what emerges from here as this. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Again, I don't want to cut you off if there's anything else, but it's just been incredible. You've shared things that have sort of, I resonate in my own experience deeply, and it's sort of like there's a kind of a spiritual confidence even that grows. That, wow, that, you know, what Tim is speaking is about what it is to be a human, that I've always felt, and at times have felt deeply, and other times have doubted, you know, and it's just this is like another step, like, wow, you have just touched something that I know is true. It's just a confidence grows in this to even be more trusting of this love. So thank you.
Thank you.
My heart. I'm sure the people are going to listen. They're going to feel your dealing. So we'll end it with there. All right. Much love.
And to you.
And we'll see you. I think it is, if I get the date right. Let me not mess it up here. But
it's in my diary. I know that.
It is Sunday, July 11th. You'll be leading us at 10 o'clock Eastern time. 1 o'clock. No, what am I saying? It's 5 hours. So it'll be 3 o'clock Britain's time. And figure it out. Whoever's watching it, you know. But
I've got it.
Thank you.
See you then. And thanks for a lovely conversation.
Thank you. And we'll see you this Sunday in ICU.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.